Without further ado, I'd love to bring on our first guest tonight, BJ Bass. BJ is an NBA agent. BJ is the managing partner over at RBA Sports. And BJ, who's over on Twitter at BJBass2, the number 2, is a great follow, one of the great follows. And we're going to talk to him tonight about what's going on in the NBA, specifically around the draft, specifically around him getting us educated about a lot of the players in the league. We'll talk about the teams. We'll talk about a number of players. And we'll talk to BJ about what he does for a living. So, BJ, welcome to Inside the Berger Shop. As you can tell, it's a packed show. The grill is on fire tonight. How's everything?
Good, right. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Excited to have you. And I guess before we get into the draft, you're a basketball lifer like me, so I sort of want to throw this out. You know, obviously, we're in a similar age bracket, and yet the sport feels like it's transitioned immensely from the way it was growing up. You know, the big man is almost evaporated from the game. The three-pointer is almost like a layup at this point. You have these super teams. In your estimation as an NBA agent, working with so many guys, where is the sport today in your eyes? Where is the basketball, the NBA in your eyes?
Well, I mean, the business is tremendous. I mean, with the expansion of the D League and them getting soon to 30 for 30, I think, as that becomes more integrated with the league and starts to get, some more TV going, and you have a tighter connection of the player development and coaching staffs. I think that's a big piece of, something that's been really good, and it's continuing to build. But I think it's just, incredible going back before, Adam Silver took over, David Stern, when we were kids, David Stern, who probably doesn't get enough credit for being maybe one of the most underrated CEOs in terms of, the global 500. I mean, what he did in his understanding of marketing and taking the players and understanding how to market the individual players and building this thing into a global brand, it's really just incredible. And then, when you look at this finals, I mean, I know a lot of people thought that, it could have been better, it could have been more suspenseful, but the level of play in this finals was just so incredible. The shot making and the specialization and how this thing has gotten down to a science in terms of, how they study analytics and, mismatches and matchups and all these different things that go into it. It's really, I mean, I love it. I know you're a huge hoops guy too. I think the NBA is in an incredible place. I think it's only going to get better.
It's interesting, BJ. It was sort of, I got a big smile, the fact that right after the finals, which, was immense possessions, incredible shot making, all world talent. It took me back 2 nights later to the 30 for 30 Celtics Lakers and the several part series, and seeing how different the sport was. Dumping the ball to McHale and watching him get 50. Bird. I mean, all these guys at that time, Celtics with 5 and 6, Hall of Famers, Magic and the Lakers running up and down, pushing the pace. It almost looks like it was in slow motion. Like those guys were pushing the pace, and he was throwing an alley-oop to Michael Cooper once or twice a game. Now you watch the team like Golden State, and they might throw 2 alley-oops in 30 seconds. The game has changed so much. It's almost like some teams have changed and some teams are sort of staying in that same old school strategy of, I need to draft a big man, I need to surround them with the right pieces. It almost feels like they're playing chess while their teams are playing checkers.
No, I agree with you. They're definitely, listen, the length on the floor and the ability to have that length, step out and shoot it, but also with the skill set, is really what's kind of flipped this thing. And, it's funny. It started, we were talking, I forget who I was talking to the other day. We were talking about Beeline at West Virginia. And, I mean, I'm sure it started before then, but this was one of the more sort of prominent examples of flipping the court where you had Pissnoggle. That was like the Mike Gansey West Virginia team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they made a run.
Money from three.
Right, and they made a run to the Sweet 16, and he was the first guy to really have success with that at the college level anyway, where he would take his bigs away from the hoop and then bring the defense out away and spread the floor and stretch the floor. But you're right. I mean, it's hard to compare the athlete today and how much work they put in also year-round. The wingspan, like I said, the specialization. It's really hard to make that argument either way. You know, I saw something today with how would Shaq and Kobe do against this Golden State team. I mean, Shaq and Kobe I still kind of consider, even though it's been a while, it's still this generation. But if you try to put this Golden State team up against, you know, the Bulls or the Celtics you're mentioning, you know, it's tough. I mean, I don't know athletically if those guys can hang with these guys, honestly. Maybe they'd get beat up. But, you know, in terms of speed and athleticism, I mean, it's a whole different world today.
Oh, no, it's crazy. It's a whole different world. I mean, those games watching, you know, Steve Kerr being able to guard John Stockton to a degree, and then you look at, you know, how fast some of these teams, Golden State, Cleveland, and now I want to talk about Cleveland for a second, then I want to move on to the draft. Maybe before we get into Cleveland, tell us a little bit about what you specifically do. You're an agent. You're obviously involved in a lot of with the up-and-coming players, involved with the D-League and a lot of that, which you mentioned earlier. Give us a sense, BJ, exactly what you do, obviously with having such a great vantage point into the league and a lot of the players on the rise.
Well, thanks for saying that. We built the agency. We've been growing it organically. We have the things that really set us apart. We put a lot of chips into the D-League. We knew, or we thought years ago that the D-League, we could see this coming, and we really felt like that was a place where we could you know, put some of our talent to develop and, you know, get themselves in a situation where they could either A, make the league, or B, increase their value for overseas markets. And I think you're seeing that a lot more and more. I mean, the number of call-ups, the number of assignments, the number of guys that are getting gigs over in Europe that have had success in the D-League. So that's been part of our blueprint since we started to kind of grow organically. And the other piece that's enabled us to have a repeatable and scalable model is the Basketball City, our affiliation with Basketball City down in New York by South Street Seaport. So to have, and that's really become an incredible spot. The NBA is having their award show at Pier 36 next week. So it's really become a convergence point for sports and entertainment. And what it's done for us is it's given us the ability to find talent early and develop it and train guys at Basketball City, and then also leverage the D-League to, you know, to get some kids that are talented, frankly, but are below the radar. And that's kind of the niche that we've carved out. Couple interesting kids this year again, and we'll probably have a group of maybe, you know, half dozen kids in the D-League again this year. You know, a couple kids are pretty close, and they'll be in summer league and definitely have a chance in the fall. And I kind of look at it as a roulette table. You put a bunch of chips on the table, and you're going to hit one or two.
Very interesting. We're talking to NBA agent and the managing director of RBA Sports, BJ Bass. You can follow BJ on Twitter at BJ Bass2, the number 2. BJ, I talked a little bit about Cleveland before. Big news, obviously. The GM says goodbye to the organization. He was there for a couple of years, championship and as well as in the finals. Brought LeBron in, built this team around him, obviously with Irving. Lost in Golden State this year to 5 games. What do you think is sort of going on with Cleveland, A? And B, I'd like to sort of get your temperature and take your temperature on LeBron. You know, obviously you're hearing a tremendous amount of rumors about Love. You're hearing Paul George. You're hearing a lot of stuff. You're hearing LeBron didn't want Griffin fired and Gilbert didn't. LeBron 1 year left on a contract already, has left Cleveland already. You know, give us a sense of what you're hearing about what's going on in Cleveland, and A, and B, talk a little bit about LeBron, both from the standpoint of what you see on the court and his legacy in the sense of how good do you think he is when you look at the all-time great conversation?
Good stuff. First of all, Griff is great. He's really great. There's a lot of really good guys in the league. There's some guys that, frankly, are tough to deal with, and it's funny how karma works. A lot of times those guys don't make it. Griff is one of the good guys. He's a guy that always, when I was starting out, he would always take my call. I don't call these guys unless I think I really have something, but you have to establish some credibility in order to continue the relationship. And Griff is a guy I've always gotten along with, and he'll land on his feet. The timing sucks. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure if he had a chance now to do it over, maybe he would love to jump to Orlando or Milwaukee or one of these other places that he might have had a chance for. So I wish him the best, and I'm sure he'll land on his feet. He's well respected in the league. It sounds like they want to bring in Chauncey, and that's kind of already a done deal. Reading the tea leaves, I doubt they would make.
But BJ, that's one of the things I don't understand. It's like Billups goes on, smart player, Mr. Big Shot, goes on ESPN, and he's a better candidate for that job than, let's say, someone like Sam Hinkie, who right now is out of a job, but has built what. And we're going to talk to our next guest about that in a little while, but look what this guy has built in Philly. He's not more qualified than Billups to come in, who's never done the job before, for 1 year to figure out how he's going to give LeBron everything he wants and keep LeBron. That pressure, along with that inexperience, what is that?
I think it probably, I'm speculating, but I imagine that, Rich Paul and these guys have their hand in this somehow.
Yep.
And I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but you can be sure that he has some kind of control over this situation, and it may be about trying to keep LeBron there for the long term. Kind of segueing to LeBron, I don't know what he's going to do. I'm reading the same stuff you are. His wife wants to go to LA. Look, he went to Cleveland. He won a championship, so he doesn't owe them anything anymore. And if he wants to settle down with his kids and his family on the West Coast as he, continues his life, and he wants to go make a run with the Clippers or something like that, that's fine. It'd be exciting to watch. You'd hope that he would want to stay in Cleveland and try to get it done again, but I don't blame him if just from a living standpoint, or he wants another challenge and he thinks he can go maybe win with DeAndre or Chris Paul. I don't know. As far as his legacy, he's the best player I've ever seen, and it's not even close. The only caveat there is, and Van Gundy said it in Game 3, about the 5-minute mark. He said, hey, LeBron's got to close this game in the paint or at the free throw line. And as good as he was in the first half of Game 3, he had to close that one out, and he didn't. And if he does that, all of a sudden, I don't know, we could have a Game 7 right now. I don't know what day we'd be on. But,
no, we definitely do, absolutely.
Right, and that's how close the series was. But the fact that he didn't get it done, and looking back to even the first year where he, before Kyrie got hurt in overtime, he took a fall-away 3 with a chance to win in regulation. There's something there that he doesn't want to be at the line to close out these games, and that is the one single thing that I think separates him and Jordan, and it's a huge thing because that's, you're playing in the NBA, all these games are coming down to the end, and you have to be able to make a play, and this guy physically can get to the line whenever he wants. So for me, that's the biggest takeaway that, hey, when you're talking about legacy and history, that's a knock. But as far as just his overall talent and his skill with his size and strength, his ability, his passing ability, his rebounding ability, his shot making has just elevated where this guy's shooting 60% from the field. You can't compare the numbers to Jordan. Jordan had finals where he won them all, but he's, 8 for 22, 8 for 24. LeBron's shooting 60% every night. So just in terms of stacking up the numbers, it's a different universe. But in terms of bottom line winning, Jordan had him there. He had the mindset. He had the killer, clutch gene, whatever you want to call it. And that's the big separation that I.
That's about as good as anyone I've ever heard say it, because that is as transparent and as almost as honest. And when you look at the comparison, you're right. That's the biggest knock on James forever has been the closing. And you looked at that game when Van Gundy said that, and you looked at his finals against the Spurs that year in his first time. And if there's ever a knock on the guy, it's certainly the lack of hunger in the biggest of spots. Even the play where he was in the lane basically 4 feet away and kicks it out to what I thought was a somewhat covered Korver in the corner for a fadeaway three. He's always interested in making what he considers the right play and will go to his grave understanding that if he loses, Channing Frye took the big shot, but he made the kick out. It's that sort of right play that he believes, and most people believe, is the right play to play. It would be so unbelievably interesting if MJ were to play in the social media days,
Yeah, no question.
Everything is so
and then look on that one play,
dissected.
Korver's the all time. I mean, Korver's like the best shooter ever, but he wasn't having that kind of series,
Yeah, and he was somewhat covered. It wasn't wide open, but regardless, it's to the point where everything is so dissected, every shot, every pass, and it started with obviously the horrific decision, not a horrific decision to go to Miami, which I'd argue was the best decision he ever made. He got out of Cleveland. He became a winner. He went under Riley. He had Wade next to him. Most people I think it was a great decision. How he handled the decision though, is what destroyed his reputation, and still to this day has people hating on his game and hating on him versus Jordan, only because they have such a bad taste in his mouth about how he left. And if Jordan was playing during the social media times, there was so many things MJ did, including leaving to play a different sport and then leaving his teammates.
Right.
Where James left another team to stay in the league, this guy left the sport entirely. So there's a lot of sort of things to look at. I mean, I saw an interesting stat 2 days ago. MJ's playoff winning percentage, 65%. LeBron's winning percentage playoffs, 64%. I mean, they're unbelievably close, but when you look at how James plays, and again, I'd probably give the nod to MJ, but you're right. When you look at someone like James and what he's able to accomplish, no one's ever been able to do anything like that. But the passing and the IQ is really what gets me. His incredible use of the pass and finding guys at a time in which in an AAU culture, passing the ball like that has sort of evaporated. So it's interesting to hear your take on it, and it makes a lot of sense for sure.
Well, the kid averaged a triple-double in the final, so you can't do much better than that. And I will tell you this, and I don't mean to, hijack the show here, but I know you want to segue into the draft. I only see one player when you talk about passing. I see one player in this draft, and I could be wrong, but I only see one player that is dynamic, and that we could be talking about potentially in the same kind of way with his ability to pass, and that's the UCLA kid. And frankly, everybody else to me is a question mark. But I think this kid really has a chance to be very special, and I think he's only going to get better when he has 3 or 4 other lob catchers around him. I think it's going to look like the Globetrotters.
The kid reminds me of Jason Kidd 2.0. He shoots the ball really nicely, actually, with a weird shot, but it goes in from the left. He clearly needs to work on it going to the right. But his passing ability is I couldn't agree more. And better point guards are always better when you surround them with better talent. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him and his dad and all. It's gotten a little bit more lighthearted in the last couple of months with some of the advertising and stuff. But do you see him getting by the Lakers? Obviously, Fultz is going to go one. We don't need to spend time on Fultz and what's going on with the Celtics. But do you see Ball going to the Lakers?
I'll give you this one piece. I think Fultz, to me, looks like Steve Francis. And that's not a knock. It's just I'm not sure what he is yet. I think he's really, really good, but I just think Ball – I don't think the Lakers pass on Ball. I think that – I don't know what they were putting out there. Maybe they're trying to maneuver around, but I don't believe for a second. I mean, I saw Magic sitting courtside at UCLA all season. I mean, he saw what we saw. Magic Johnson's not going to pass on that kid. And if I'm wrong, I'll come on here and say it. But I can't imagine they would pass on this kid who I agree with you but he's longer than Kidd. He shoots Kidd couldn't shoot. Kidd wouldn't shoot in college.
Yep.
So this kid not only, he understands that, hey, I'm going to come first 4 or 5 minutes a game. Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to get Leaf off. I'm going to get Alford. I'm going to get this guy. And then as soon as you go up 2 or 3 or whatever, and I need to come down, 3 steps over half court and hit a bomb just to let you know that, hey, this is coming whenever I need it. Like, this kid has a lot of tools. He's longer than people think. Defensively, he gets up on you. He gets into you. He gets a lot of deflections. He gets out in passing lanes. I mean, I saw Kidd like you saw Kidd, but I think this kid has a higher ceiling, and I realize we're talking about a Hall of Famer in Jason Kidd. I just think this kid's ceiling is absolutely through the roof.
Great points. Couldn't agree more with you, man. Love his game. Not sure about the other brothers, but I like this Ball brother a lot. You mentioned the rest of the guys being question marks, which is pretty interesting in a draft that people are very high on guys. I'm going to give you some names and just give you sort of 15 seconds on these guys. Josh Jackson, swing out of Kansas. Danny Ainge seems to be enthralled. Big-time player, number 1 kid coming out of high school, one and done at Kansas. What are your thoughts on JJ?
If you can't shoot, then that's a big problem. And, we talk about today's NBA game. Huge question mark. Good athlete. I've heard he competes, seen him compete. But I would just say this, and you can throw out another name. Go back and look, and I'm sure you've seen it. I think it's Hoops Hype. They do the redrafting. And if you look at the last 15 years of drafting and how, badly it goes compared to how it should have gone, and then how many guys actually make it, so few of these guys have a chance to be NBA All-Stars. I think we fall in love with the idea that these guys are lottery picks, and they may be the top 12 NBA prospects. But I've always said that after picks maybe 5 or 6, and you could cut off anywhere, you're going to find a better, more prepared player in the D-League. So I think a lot of this is more romance of seeing these guys up there and getting drafted and walking on the stage and all that. But when it comes down to it, they're not ready. They're 18, 19 years old, and some of them may never be ready. So, I mean, I like Jackson. I like the idea of a wing defender. You need that. But for the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft, is he going to be an NBA All-Star one day? I can't say that.
No, the biggest challenge I have with the draft today is guys are just totally picked on potential. It's always been like that, but it's now to the point of guys that play and come out in their junior year. People think, oh, I've seen everything he's got already, and let me take the kid who's 18 and no one's ever seen from France kind of a thing. So it's very, very crapshoot to your point, and obviously delivers results based on that. And what are your thoughts on Calipari's guys? Big time point guard, the Fox. A lot of people seem to like him. And then, of course, Monk, who can fill it up. Reminds me of a poor man's Allen Houston a little bit. But again, unbelievably young. Some thoughts about the Knicks maybe taking Monk at 8. What are your thoughts on the Kentucky guys?
Fox, I see a quicker Jalen Rose, maybe. I don't know if he's a true point guard. I don't know if he can shoot it, but, a lefty with size that can handle it some, can pass it some. He'll have to prove that he can shoot. Monk, I like. I think he's got a big ceiling. I think probably Ball and Monk, to me, have the 2 highest ceilings. Monk has to learn how to actually play and play make and, assist to turnover ratio and those types of things, but he can absolutely score. I see Kobe's body. I'm not saying Monk is Kobe in any way, but He's got the shoulders. I think he'll fill out with that wingspan. So Monk has, I think he has some work to do, but I think next to Ball, he's the guy that I would say. And look, listen, I'm not breaking any news here. I mean, these are two top McDonald's All-America guys, but I think Monk probably has a higher ceiling than Fox, just because I don't know if Fox can shoot it yet.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Have you seen this kid from France, Frank Nicolina, yet? Have you seen him either in live, in person? I mean, obviously we've all seen the videos. Is that something that you think Phil is going to do Thursday? Is he going to continue to stockpile young Europeans? Where did you see the Knicks going, and have you seen this kid at all?
I've seen some film. I actually talked to one of my partners in France today who knows he's kind of plugged into the situation. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Phil does it. He's had success bringing guys over with Willie and KP. So that, and I know, Mills and some of their other guys have been over there. So it seems like all signs point to that. I know Dallas, Donnie was over there with Tony Ronzoni. So they obviously like the kid too. My guy today in France said something interesting. He didn't think the guy was a top 10 type of talent. He's a first round talent, but very raw, has a long way to go. I mean, the kid's got big wingspan. He's a big kid. Could he be the type of guy that plays point guard in the triangle? Phil had Ron Harper play point guard in the triangle. So, it doesn't have to be a point guard per se. So I can see what they see there. And I would tend to think that they would, that they wouldn't take a guy like Monk, even though he might have a higher ceiling. Maybe he has more to go in terms of his development, but I don't know. If Monk is sitting there at 8, it'd be tough for him to pass up on that type of talent. But I don't know. I have no idea what we're gonna do. We're gonna find out Thursday night.
It's crazy, man. It's like it's almost the opposite of what makes sense with Phil. It's like, well, here's Monk. He played for Kentucky. He played with against the top comp. He scored 50 in a game. He scored 40 in a game. And then there's this guy who's 18, who is in France, who doesn't even start in the French playoffs right now. And he's a project. He's going to take him a couple of years. But he's Phil's guy because 25 years ago, Ron Harper played point in an antiquated offense. It's almost crazy. And by the way, this guy Phil, and again, I was all for the hiring of Phil, but he's getting paid basically more than anybody in the league. And I just can't figure out the logic. Now, I understand you want to rebuild or you want to put young guys around Porzingis, but Monk's a freshman. It's not like because he's been on TV 30 times at Kentucky that he's a junior or senior. I mean, he's still 19 years old also. So, the upside is significant, but, the guy can clearly put the ball in the basket. And clearly that's what a lot of teams need. When I just watched Golden State play Cleveland and the winning team is scoring 140 points, you got to get guys who can make shots in this league. You talked about it with Fox. In the way the new league is and the system and the setup, I mean, Cleveland's in trouble because they don't have enough scoring, and they score 110 a game in the finals against the best defense in the league. You got to find guys who can clearly score the ball, huh?
I agree with you, and like I said, I think that Ball and Monk are the two dynamic talents. But listen, he has a system. I mean, I've had kids in there. I for a couple of workouts, and I know they're working on the triangle, and that's what he believes in. And he's won with it. Now, are they going to be able to slow the pace and play more half court in today's NBA? Remains to be seen. I will say this, though. I mean, you can't take away he hit with KP and he hit with Willie. And, I mean, those guys, KP might be the best prospect we ever had. I mean, Ewing, obviously, Patrick Ewing. But in terms of his ceiling, KP is off the chart. And so you got to give him that. And then if he can find a way now, this year, next year, to put some pieces on the perimeter around those two guys and keep those guys. He's got to figure out a way to keep KP happy and get him signed and build around them. But what's crazy is they're not that far away. And so, you hear him talk about the Carmelo trade and it's like, hey, Carmelo should go somewhere and win. Well, if you make the right move this week and you get a kid and you find another kid in the second round like you have with Willie, all of a sudden you're not as far away as you think. So,
right.
You know, is it gonna happen? I don't know. I don't know. I hope it does. I told you I grew up on Long Island, so I bleed orange and blue. Sounds like you do also, and I hope they do it. But who knows?
Interesting stuff. And again, we're talking to BJ Bass. Follow him on Twitter at BJ Bass, the number 2. BJ, before we let you go, I know you have a major pulse on guys in the second round, guys that are sort of trying to make it. Give us a couple names to look out for on Thursday night. I know you and I both are always trading tweets about Bucky basketball over at the Badgers of Wisconsin. Big fans, both of us, of the way they run the offense, the way they pass the ball. Nigel Hayes, Bronson, and Koenig and whatnot. Give us a sense of a couple of guys you have your eye on Thursday night, or you think can kind of break through that nobody's talking about.
Well, no, I just like those guys. I mean, I went to Wisconsin, so it's there's a place in my heart with them. But I'm not a huge Badger guy. I mean, they get right there to the doorstep and they don't win. They beat Kentucky, they lose to Duke. They always seem to, in football, they're always right there, and then they lose one game they shouldn't, and then they're out of the national title conversation. But I mean, Koenig, just watching them the last 4 years, I mean, how many big shots?
Dude, it's crazy. Every big shot.
and I mean, Koenig, I think he's the leading. I could be wrong about this, but I think I saw somewhere that he's the leading all-time scorer in the tournament over 4 years. And
wow.
If he's not the leader, he's really close. I mean, I think I read that. So, I mean, people look. Is he a prototypical NBA athlete that jumps out at you? No, but you watch. He'll probably end up in the D League. And people will realize, oh, my God, this kid's better than we thought, and he's a floor general, and he's the type of kid you want on an NBA roster, and he's a big shot maker, and he can find people, and he's tough, and he'll guard people. So he'll find a way onto a roster. And Hayes is a kid that I think, when I look at Draymond and some of the stuff that he does for Golden State, that's what I see in Hayes. And is he a pure shooter? No. But is he a big shot maker in crunch time? Yes. Does he bring a million different intangibles? Can he guard multiple positions? Yes. And do they win? They've just won every year over 4 years. So I look at guys like that and I say, okay, they may not even be on Draft Express right now or whatever, but somebody smart is going to take those guys and they're going to end up making a roster. And then when you look back on the Hoops Hype redraft, you're going to see guys like Koenig and Hayes way further up than where they actually get selected if they get taken Thursday, or if they just go to summer league as undrafted free agents. But those are the types of guys that you need to find that can actually make a roster. And I think the teams that have the most success are finding guys. You're not going to always hit a home run, but if you can find guys in the draft that can make a roster and help your team and be a rotation guy, then you've done your job.
Makes a lot of sense. Again, BJ, makes a lot of sense in what you're talking about regarding Wisconsin basketball. Are there other guys in the draft should we keep an eye on as we sort of wrap up this sort of preview for Thursday night NBA draft? Are there guys that you have your eye on that you haven't heard much about from the general public?
I mean, I like the Gonzaga kid. Definitely a guy that, is a second-round projected guy that had a chance to I think, be really good. And the other kid I would give you is the Oregon kid. I think he's great. I don't know, if there are any – I'm not sure if there are any issues there or what's holding him back from being more highly rated than he is. But – man, oh man, the kid Jordan Bell. I mean, he looks the part to me. So I would say Bell, Goss, and then and I like Thornwell. I think Thornwell from South Carolina. I mean, you talk about the ability to shoot. He can also pass it. I mean, I've seen this kid pass it full court passing. He'll rebound. He'll outlet that ball from one side of the court to the other. He's a shot maker. He's a tough kid. I'm surprised. I mean, I've seen him sneaking closer to the back of the first round, but he's another guy. If he slips into the second round, somebody could hit a real home run with that kid.
Yeah, no, he's got a lot of talent. Duke knows everything that he can do where he pushed them in the tournament. Bell's an interesting prospect, a little undersized. I think that's what's held him back, but he's a bear, and with that motor, playing 20, 25 minutes off the bench to start for a number of teams can be a big-time asset. Well, this was great, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the 30 minutes. Let's catch up over 18 holes out east this summer, man.
Sounds great. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. That's BJ Bass. He's the managing director of RBA Sports, NBA agent, incredible follow on Twitter. You can follow him at BJ Bass, the number 2. Thanks to BJ and all RBA Sports for coming on